Welcome to GRE. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Turnkey real estate investing is a popular, lucrative model for long-term rentals. With short-term rentals, there's an opportunity to partner with a known brand and leverage their name recognition and economies of scale in a dreamy world place. Today on Get Rich Education. The people that our listeners can't stop talking about are Ridge Lending Group, NMLS 42056. They've provided GRE listeners with more loans than anyone, and it's where I got my last few loans. They finance single-family income property up to fourplexes. They're the number one lender for beginners and veterans. Start your pre-qualification, chat with President Chaley Ridge personally, and get your custom plan for expanding your cash-flowing portfolio. Start at ridgelendinggroup.com. Checkbook IRAs have been ruled illegal by the U.S. tax court. With contribution limits 10 times what traditional and Roth IRAs allow, get total control of all of your IRA funds without paying the nasty UBIT tax with the retirement plan answer left standing, the EQRP. You can invest your retirement funds in real estate, gold, Bitcoin, and even your own business. This works whether you're a solopreneur or have up to 50 employees. Learn more about getting started. Text EQRP in all caps to 72,000.
You're listening to the show that has created more financial freedom than nearly any show in the world. This is Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE. From Pretoria, South Africa to Astoria, Oregon, and across 188 nations worldwide, I'm Keith Weinhold. This is Get Rich Education. Yeah, you're back in that abundant place where financially free beats debt-free, doing the right thing before you do things right. One of the most influential songs in the history of American popular music has to do with, well, something that a lot of North Americans think about when it's this time of year, the winter, and that is Jimmy Buffett's 1977 song, Margaritaville. Wasting away again in Margaritaville. Come on, I know you know that song. Well, that vibe and those lyrics reflect this sort of laid-back lifestyle in a tropical climate. Besides being a mega popular song and really defining a lot of Buffett's music career, in 1985, Jimmy Buffett opened a Margaritaville restaurant in Key West, Florida. And then those locations grew, and Margaritaville, that became the known name of several products licensed by Buffett. And it's really quite an interesting study in business and branding. And there is more. The brand is flourishing. There is Margaritaville clothing and frozen seafood and beach furniture and Margaritaville beach cruiser bicycles. They now have airport lounge restaurants in the U.S. and elsewhere. There is now a new cruise line called Margaritaville at Sea. Now, the real estate brand, it is named Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville, and there are locations in the U.S., Canada, Mexico, and 6 island nations throughout the Caribbean and Sydney, Australia as well. There is construction of a new Margaritaville project just outside the U.S. in an area that had a pre-pandemic population growth rate multiples faster than the United States. And it's in a place that I'm familiar with, and it does align really tightly with the Margaritaville laid-back tropical lifestyle, and that place is Belize. It's so laid-back and charming that to get around there and in the nearby town, you will find yourself spending more time in a golf cart or on a boat than you do in a car. Yeah, that's how people get around there, and that's something that I've experienced for myself several times. Now, Belize has some distinct advantages that we're going to talk about today. It's also closer to most of the U.S. than some other resort-like places are, for example, Hawaii. And you know what? I'll tell you personally, when I swim or snorkel in Hawaii, I've often had to get out of the water because I have gotten too cold. And if you look on a globe, Hawaii is barely in the tropics. Now, there are a lot of other things that I love about Hawaii, but understand that Belize has warmer water. It has the largest barrier reef in this hemisphere, and that matters because it makes it good for swimming and diving and snorkeling and fishing. Let's learn more about this tropical real estate brand in what has been a fast-growing place. Originally from a small Illinois town and then residing in San Francisco for 27 years, the life of today's guest took a turn after he met a real estate developer working on a master planned resort village in the small Central American nation of Belize. And a few years ago, I first met and had lunch with today's guest right there on Ambergris Caye, Belize, which is the largest island in the nation. He soon saw all of the opportunities there in Belize, just like I have, and why it's one of the most favorable real estate markets in the region. So he now owns a brokerage there, and he has helped sell some of the top developments there in Belize. Welcome to GRE, Michael Fields.
Thank you, Keith. It's great to be on. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, it's so good to see you since we had lunch together on Ambergris Caye for the first time a few years ago. And Mike, what you've really done there is really helpful to a lot of people because you work as a buyer agent. And that's really important to people because a lot of North American investors haven't bought out of their home nation before. So tell us about that.
It's a great point. So one of the things when I came down here, I see that a lot of buyers, a lot of potential investors that were coming to Belize really didn't know where to get started. They didn't know to what developments to get involved in, what developments not to. Some of them want to buy land, some of them want to get in, build a home, and they just had nowhere to get started.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be a good idea to be a buyer's agent because there's no downside to a buyer, right? The seller always pays. So I thought, this would be a great opportunity. It's not being done down here. When someone comes down, they get off that plane in San Pedro, that they have someone that they can trust, that has their back and can go out and find exactly what they're looking for. What we do also many times is someone will reach out to me and say, hey, Mike, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom on the water. And in their living room, I can send them videos and I can send them things so they have a good idea before they get down here of what they want to see and what they don't want to see.
There are plenty of nations to invest in when one goes outside their own home nation. So tell us more about why Belize rather than another place like Mexico or Costa Rica or Panama or Nicaragua, some of those other countries that have some, I suppose, expat or tourist appeal.
You had mentioned in my bio, I lived in California for 27 years and felt like a rat on a wheel going round and round and round. And I always studied international real estate and I was trying to find what the next is. And all the research that I did, Mexico kept coming up, Costa Rica, Panama, Nicaragua. I traveled them all and I went there to do my own research. Mexico, I think that some of the parts have been done already. They're in the, as I relate it to baseball, they're in the 8th or 9th inning. Costa Rica, I don't speak Spanish. So some of these places were a little bit more difficult. I couldn't understand the agreements, the contracts. Panama, that's an interesting place. Little far to go. So if I want to get home or I want to get back to the States, it's a little bit longer flight. And Nicaragua, it's just a challenging place, right? To get around. The inventory was very low. But again, I don't speak Spanish, so that was a challenge for me. Costa Rica I came close to, but to getting around the country, there's a lot of roads and ups and downs. And it was just the areas that I was interested in kind of have been built up. So when I got to Belize, it was just, to me, no-brainer. I was quoted in the New York Times about a year ago saying that we're in the 2nd inning when it relates to baseball. It's English speaking, it's British common law. Currently, when I started coming here, we had about 8 to 9 international flights. We now have 19 direct flights from North America. So I could see that international airport was growing. I could see what the market was going to be and what it's becoming. So for me, Belize was just kind of a no-brainer. I mean, if you think about what it has to offer, I can't believe, Keith, it's not more built up than it is currently. If you think about it, just for a sec, I can get to the United States in an hour and a half. I'm originally from Chicago. I can get from Belize to Chicago quicker than I could get from San Francisco to Chicago.
That's amazing.
And you wouldn't believe how many people living in Florida that come down don't even know where Belize is.
Right.
But we're starting to get that traction. Belize it's just a fit. I could see where it was going. And like I said, more and more flights are coming every month. And the people are coming in droves.
We're talking about a New Jersey-sized nation in Central America that only has about 1/15 to 1/20 the population of New Jersey, yet Belize's population is growing fast. You talk about how English speaking is widespread. In fact, Belize was named British Honduras until about 40 years ago. And yes, its proximity to the United States often surprises a lot of people. But in today's world, Michael, let's talk about how Belize has reacted to the pandemic before we go on and talk about the real estate.
I tell you, we stayed down here. It's handled it very, very, very well. The nice thing about Belize is people are spread out. Like you said, it's a smaller country. Ambergris Caye is an island, Caye Caulker, the mainland. So people are a little bit more spread out. They've handled it very, very well. We have it under control. It's pretty easy to get down here currently. I believe the update is a negative test 54 hours before you fly down. That's it. It's pretty easy, but we've handled it very well. We haven't had too many deaths. The system has been holding up quite well. It's been a great place to sit during the pandemic, that's for sure.
Now, international travelers are going to fly into Belize City, and then from the international airport in Belize City, one takes a 15 to 20-minute flight on a small commuter plane over to the island of Ambergris Caye, and that flight lands in San Pedro, the largest city in Ambergris Caye, which is this island that sits just off the east coast of mainland Belize. And Ambergris Caye is 25 miles long by 1 mile wide, depending on where you measure. But Ambergris Caye is really the hot place. A lot of people think that is the best place to invest in all of Belize. In fact, the first international property I ever bought in my life was on Ambergris Caye. And Ambergris Caye, Michael, is where you're helping with a development called Margaritaville. Tell us more about where you're located and why you've chosen the location for Margaritaville on Ambergris Caye that you have.
Yeah, so Margaritaville, it's the third branded hotel on the island. The reason we chose Margaritaville, and especially on San Pedro, is because San Pedro is where 75% of all the tourism goes on the island. This is where everybody comes. This is where all the restaurants are, the live music. This is where everything's happening, right? And like you said, we have about 25,000 people on the island. We got into Margaritaville because it's such a strong brand. Margaritaville is blowing up all over the world, actually. So we were excited to partner up with Margaritaville. We're on the northern part of the island. It's about 12 miles north of San Pedro. Why we like Margaritaville is because it's really kind of the clientele that is already coming to San Pedro. We're excited to be a partner with them.
If you, the listener, in your mind's eye are thinking of a place that's just overrun with huge developments and tall buildings and maybe a place like Cancun, this feel is so laid back and it's just completely opposite. And there aren't any high rises at all on the island of Ambergris Caye. When it comes to Margaritaville, Michael, tell us more. So that's actually branded with Jimmy Buffett.
It is. It's branded with Jimmy Buffett. San Pedro is when you come down and visit. Most of the people get around by golf carts or by bikes. I mean, there are a few cars on the island, but that's how everybody gets around. It's branded with Jimmy Buffett and Margaritaville. One of the things why we decided to go with Margaritaville is because what Margaritaville is trying to do in the States is exactly what San Pedro is. And it's a unique property. Most Margaritavilles have 100, 200, like you mentioned, high-rise units. We only go as high as a coconut tree. We only have each building, we have 10 buildings. Each building is only 2 floors, and each building only has 4 units in it. And it's a very low density product. We're on just under 10 acres. We have 500 feet of beachfront, which is some of the best beachfront on the island.
Oh, yeah.
And we're only going to have 55 units. So it's very low density with 2 pools, 2 restaurants, 2 bars. We have live music. It's really, really a unique product.
Just to give you an idea, the San Pedro Town Council years ago, they stated that no building height can rise higher than the height of a typical coconut palm tree, and the feel that that helps give you. And now you are several miles north of San Pedro Town on Ambergris Caye, but just to give people a feel for what it's like there and that it's not overdeveloped. And you can quickly feel that when everyone is getting around on golf carts more so than cars, for example. But Michael, you talked about the beach. Talk to us some more about that physical location of Margaritaville with its proximity to the reserve and the reef and the things that there are to do there, both inside and outside Margaritaville.
It's 12 miles north of San Pedro. It's a 25-minute. The boat ride is unbelievable. I'm lucky enough to do it on a regular basis. And I'm always on the ride up. I'm always seeing dolphins and turtles and all types of sea life. Once you get up there, we're actually right up against the Boca Chica Marine Reserve, which is a marine reserve that is protected, and it's over 15,000 acres. And it's really, really private. We don't have anybody on either side of us, which makes it nice. And you are in your little oasis. And this private beach, when people come or people invest in it, I mean, we have paddle boards, we have kayaks, we have canoes. And one thing that I'd like to mention, the cool thing about when you're on the northern part of the island, we have the largest, I mean, some people say the living reef, because some people will say the Great Barrier Reef is dying, but we have the second largest reef in the world. And it literally is 700 yards from the villa in Margaritaville. It's right off the beach. You can swim out there. The depth, it goes about maybe 10 feet to the reef. And the farther north you go on the island, the closer you are to the reef, kind of how it's set up. So Margaritaville is one of the only developments that you can be sitting on your porch and actually hear the waves crash on the reef. That's unique to the property as well.
Michael, you're building such a dreamy picture of this place. So yes, for you, if you enjoy Margaritaville and sipping your margarita on a hammock or whatever you like to do there are some other activities. And yes, I have snorkeled at that second largest barrier reef in the world, like you mentioned, Michael, and I've never had better snorkeling in my life, but I have not yet taken that 25-minute boat ride that you just talked about. I hope to do that soon. You're listening to Get Rich Education. We're talking with Michael Fields about Margaritaville in Belize. When we come back, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. You know, a lot of investors choose either cash flow or home price appreciation, but one real estate market could provide both: Jacksonville, Florida. They've got 27% lower home prices and higher rents than the national median. Their market has appreciated 34% more than other comparable cash flow markets over the last 30 years. Get positive cash flow today and above average appreciation for tomorrow. They often have available inventory in Jacksonville, if you can believe that. Start at cashflowandgrowth.com. You can get a 50-year-old house somewhere or buy a new one directly from the builder with tenant resilient amenities already built in. With over 3,000 Florida units at different construction stages, they are exclusively for investors. President Wagner and Alaska and team also invest strongly in their own product. That's belief. Start at buildtorentdirect.com. That's build the number 2 rentdirect.com or text 407-927-5074.
This is Rich Dad Advisor Tom Wheelwright. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold and don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. We're talking about Margaritaville, a dreamy development on Ambergris Caye, Belize. If you're interested in getting started and owning a chunk of Margaritaville, you can do that at gremarketplace.com/Belize. Michael, tell us more about sort of the developers and the brand and the corporation behind Margaritaville and the brand that's become both in the United States and now in Belize as well.
It's funny, Keith. Margaritaville in the States, it's either one of the top 2, if not the top, growing hotel developments in the United States, in North America. Just to give you a little story, I was in Orlando when we were starting to get involved with Margaritaville and bringing a Margaritaville down here, the franchise. And I met with the VP of sales in Orlando. and they have 1,000 acres there. And during the pandemic, this is a little over a year and a half ago, I sat down with them. I saw the numbers. I know it's fact that they were selling approximately 60 to 70 homes a month. This is during the pandemic. And that's because everybody loves the lifestyle and the Margaritaville brand.
Yeah.
And we're even starting to get that. I get inundated with emails and calls from, they call them parrot heads. I get these calls from these parrot heads that can't get their home built for 4 or 5 years and are realizing, wow, Belize is close to Florida, or it's close to Texas, or it's close to the Midwest, and I need to understand a little bit more. So I'm getting a lot of that to come down to Belize because it's taken so long to get their home built in a Margaritaville back in the States. One of the reasons why I partnered up with the developers, Margaritaville's just like a Hilton or a Marriott, they're franchised. And so the developers came to me probably about a little over a year ago to get involved with them. And the main developers, they're great guys. They're local guys, and I'm a buyer's agent. So I always tell buyers when they're coming down, whether it's in the States, anywhere you're at, you always should know who you're partnering up with. Is the project going to finish? What's going to happen? And one of the reasons why I got involved with this project is because of the two main developers. The first gentleman is Michael Bowen. Michael Bowen owns Bowen & Bowen. He's the largest private employer in Belize. He owns all the beer distribution, Coca-Cola, water. He's got other businesses. He's got car dealerships. He's involved in a little of everything. So he's got a huge reputation here. We're building Margaritaville, whether we sell it or not, the villas. Who wouldn't want to partner with a guy like that? The second guy, which is a very interesting gentleman, his name is Chris Coy. Chris Coy has the largest law firm in the country, Courtney and Coy, and he also was appointed about a year ago to the Minister of Finance for the country of Belize. So he's the second guy in charge right under the Prime Minister. I just figured, hey, those are two great guys to partner with. So those are the main developers. And I think it's important to know who you're partnering with.
That is quite a well-connected lineup right there. When we talk about Margaritaville or any development like that, of course, we're interested in occupancy and attracting tourists. So tell us about the type of person or the tourist that's really attracted to Ambergris Caye and how that might have changed over time there, whether that's the person that's staying at Margaritaville, which is a soon-to-be built place, or somewhere else on Ambergris Caye, Michael.
That's a great question. So I'm going back just 5 years ago. When I was coming here, it was still the backpackers, right? The single travelers, the traveler that might have been traveling Southeast Asia or through Central America, the younger college type of crowd, right? And if you ever look at any type of international real estate market, it kind of starts with those travelers, right? The Instagram, the Facebook, they start building it up.
You're right.
And there's two things that happen. It's that, and it's usually a fishing village. You look at Cabo San Lucas that blew up. You look at Costa Rica. You look at Panama. They all start out as fishing villages, and younger generation comes and starts building it up. And then when the higher net worth people and the big investors start coming, then they start moving out and they try to find the next place. Well, that's what Ambergris Caye was 5 years ago. I like to call it the Gucci theory, right? You talked about the little plane ride that you fly out here. I see more Gucci purses on that plane in the last 3 years than I've ever seen. It's starting to be more high net worth, higher end clientele starting to come. It's all starting to see more families come. I see more private aircraft in Belize International Airport in the last 6 months than I've ever seen it. So they're starting to come. Investors are starting to come. Families are starting to come. So what's happening is there's plenty of little one-bedroom units, little 10-room hotels. But now that there's more families starting to come, people are coming 2 or 3 more times, bringing friends, bringing family. We're starting to need, from an inventory standpoint, larger units, larger 1-bedroom, large 2 bedrooms, 3-bedroom units, because that's what people are looking for. That's what kind of we decided when we started to develop Margaritaville, is we were going to have the larger 1-bedroom, large 2-bedroom, even 3-bedroom units, so we can provide rooms and what the market's asking for.
It's an interesting observation. There's a sort of tourist lifespan of a lot of places. Backpackers discover it, and then over time, the tourist sort of ages and becomes more affluent, and that's what's beginning to happen there.
That's exactly what happens. And what's interesting is Ambergris Caye, just to go to that point, Ambergris Caye, you'd mentioned it's 25 miles long. At most width, it's 1 or 2 miles wide. Majority of everything is on the east side of the island. And why is that? That's because the reef is on the east side of the island. And again, I go back where this started out as a fishing village, and it still is. You still see the local fishermen in their boats, and they go out lobster fishing, and you still see it. It's just interesting that most of the development's on the east side because it's close to the reef, and that started out as a fishing village.
When do we expect that Margaritaville is going to be open? Tell us about where they're at with construction, and especially with supply chain and labor shortage problems, if you're going to open on time.
That is one thing that we've had challenges with, is getting things in the country with the shipping. But we are scheduled to open in July. It's going to push back. We will open before high season of this year. So we will open in Q4. The resort is 80% done. Margaritaville has such strong brand standards that we were ready to go. Like the units, the villas themselves are pretty much done, but they came in and they said, hey, listen, add another restaurant. So we're building this beautiful indoor-outdoor restaurant with a 40-foot lighthouse right on the beach. And then we're going to have a 5-unit spa area that we also added, over water bungalows. So that has kind of delayed us a little bit, but we will open by the end of this year. So we're looking at Q4.
Well, that may very well give people time to come down and take a tour, which you offer, and you can tell us about that later. But talk to us more about the opportunity here. You talked about how there are 55 units. Do we still have units that are for sale? And if someone were interested in buying into Margaritaville, would that be for them to own and live in year round, or would they rent that out part of the year? So tell us more about the opportunity at Margaritaville.
They're moving quite quickly as of late. We have a few 3-bedrooms, we have 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms available. One of the nice things is you can come and live in it full time if you like, or you can put it into a rental pool. 95% of the people understand the strong brand that Margaritaville brings to the table. They understand that it's only the 3rd name branded hotel on the island. So probably 95% of them are coming down and buying it strictly as an investment, and they're going to use it 2 or 3 or 4 times a year. They might come down in 3 or 4 years and move in it. They can. Literally, there's no limit of how much you can use it. It is managed. The nice thing about it is it's got a third-party management team, which is a company called Charisma, which Charisma is out of North America. They manage close to 80% of all Margaritavilles. There's a management, it's turnkey, the pricing that we discussed, that's included in everything from the linens to the artwork to the dishes to the furniture. It's a turnkey. So one of the things, right, I tell people all the time, we live on an island, things happen, you're up there living your daily life up in North America and things happen. Well, down here, you want something fully managed, you want to have people in it on a regular basis, because living on an island, things can happen. So that's why we brought in Charisma. And they're a great management company.
Yes, Karisma, Charisma, managing it
Correct.
for you, making the opportunity turnkey, essentially. Tell us more about the opportunity from the perspective. Let's say I were a typical buyer and I want to come in and buy one of the 55 units at Margaritaville. What price would I expect to pay, and what ROI would I expect if I'm going to use it, say, 5% of the year and put it in the rental pool the other 95% of the time?
So the pricings range, the smaller 1-bedrooms, which don't have a kitchen, is kind of like you're investing in a hotel room, which is great if you're going to come down 1 week out of the year. They start at $215,000 fully furnished. The 1-bedrooms, the larger 1-bedrooms, they have kitchenettes. They're a little over 1,200 square feet, and they start at 319,000. And then your two bedrooms, which are a little over 1,400 square feet, those start at $350,000, fully furnished. Regarding ROI, we don't guarantee ROI. We just can go off of the market analysis, especially from Margaritaville, because they have a huge history. So just to give you an idea, the average occupancy rate for a Margaritaville hotel, and again, this is pre-pandemic, their average occupancy rate is 76.9%. If we're at 74%, so it's a conservative number, you're looking at anywhere between a 12 and 14% return.
Okay, based off the cash flow of being in the short-term rental pool for the majority of the year?
For the majority of the year. We have it in there that you're using it for 3 weeks out of the year.
And you sure can learn more about the pro forma and the performance and the property dimensions and the photos and things like that at gremarketplace.com/Belize. So starting at $215K, that's pretty approachable. So apparently you don't need the wealth of Warren Buffett in order to live like Jimmy Buffett.
Love it. That's Can I use that?
You sure can. There's no trademark on that one. Is there any other thing a prospective investor should know before they would think about purchasing something in Margaritaville? Before we talk about the tours, because you are that buyer agent, so oftentimes when people haven't bought property outside their home nation for the first time, they might have some concerns about things that they wouldn't if they were buying in their own town, for example. So how else do you help that first-time buyer?
One of the things when people come to me, I always say, hey, get an attorney. Make sure they look at the agreement. Make sure they look at the contract. That's one thing that we do. We're going to talk about that investor tour shortly here. But one of the things that I do on my tours is I will have an attorney come in and they represent you. And you have the option to ask them all the questions. We help people set up companies that they want, Belizean companies. And one of the main questions people ask is, when I receive my income, do I receive it in Belize or do I receive it in the US or Canada? And their return, their income, we can send it anywhere you like. So it's not like you're only going to get it in Belize. But as a buyer's agent, we help you with all that. I recommend getting an attorney. I remember looking over the contract. It's a pretty simple contract, very easy to read. It is in English, unlike some of the other countries. It's a pretty simple process to purchase down here. One of the nice things is down here, we do have title insurance, but it's actually American Title has an office down here. Even if you call them and say, hey, I want to get title insurance, they'll tell you that you don't need title insurance down here. I mean, the government backs all titles. So that's kind of a unique thing.
When I first bought property in Ambergris Caye and I saw the purchase contract, I was like, is this it? I think it was only 2 pages. And even though you're buying in a foreign nation, those contracts are denominated in United States dollars as well. So it's a bit like foreign investing with training wheels on. It still is a foreign investment.
It is. And you should have an attorney look at it and have your accountant understand what you plan on doing with it, whether you plan on renting it out or not renting out. Again, Margaritaville, if you decide I don't want to rent it out, you don't have to. But yeah, I mean, you should talk to your attorney to have them look over the contract.
Now, you're so confident about the development and you do want so many people to know about it and see it. You're proud of it that you frequently offer in-person tours so that someone could get a feel for the place. Tell us more about those tours, Mike.
Because I think people should come down here and experience Belize, first of all. So we offer a tour. It's $7.99 per person or $1,300 per couple. And we take care of everything. So all you have to do is get yourself down to Belize International. And it's 3 nights, 4 days, accommodations, the flight over to the island, food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we even take you out on an excursion, snorkeling out on the reef. It's not just a real estate investment tour. It is, and we focus on the developments and what's going on in the market. And we really have a good time. And what's important to me is I make sure that people understand also the lifestyle of Ambergris and Belize. Simple as they get in on Thursday, we have a wonderful dinner. It's not very salesy. And Friday, the rest of the day, we kind of go through all the developments and really check out what the opportunities are. Saturday afternoon, we do the little excursion and recap and go back to other developments. And at nights, we have great dinners and fresh fish and lobster, and we do it all. And I really like to show people not only the investment side of it, but the lifestyle.
And if you, the listener, didn't catch that, if you just get to Belize City Airport, Michael will take care of you from that point on, from your short 15 to 20 minute commuter flight over to San Pedro and from there. So, Michael, this has been a really dreamy chat about a resort in a tropical place. Are there any last things that a prospective buyer should know?
If you read all the articles, it was in Forbes, it's in all the magazines. Belize is a really, really, really booming market. There's a lot of opportunity down here for people that are looking for investing, looking to move some money offshore, looking for a little vacation place, but also for it to pay for itself and make some money on it. So it's a great time right now to come in.
Yeah, a real estate investor could diversify themselves in a number of ways into a short-term product, into a resort product, and internationally all at the same time. So it's been really fun to talk about a dreamy place. If you want to learn more and get started or just see if it's right for you and potentially go on a tour where you'll get to meet Michael, you can do that at gremarketplace.com/Belize. Michael Fields, it's been great having you on the show.
Thanks, Keith. Hope to see you down here soon.
Yeah, if this sounds interesting to you, Mike can connect you with an attorney to make the purchase easier and let you transact confidently. And he can also help you with financing options and more. And that is his job for you as that buyer agent representing you. And it's something that you don't have to pay anything for. Now, you sure don't have to, but it really is a nice touch to take that in-person tour. First, I have taken these types of tours on Ambergris Caye, and oh, it is such a nice way to spend a few days of your life. But I think what's really interesting here is how this is divergent from what you might think of as that mom and pop turnkey real estate investing in the US. With Margaritaville, consider how you get to leverage a strong brand and their name, and they're the ones doing the advertising and the marketing, and Margaritaville is the one brokering the strategic partnerships. Not to mention how the property manager is well integrated with that brand in order to do all of those short-term resident turnover and cleaning for those probably majority weeks of the year when you're not using the villa. When I first learned about this project, I thought that prices would start in the $400K range. So to get all of those things with those prices that begin in the low 200s really is pretty remarkable. And I don't know exactly how many of those 55 villas spread across 10 acres are available at this very moment, but probably not all that many. So if owning a villa in Margaritaville potentially sounds of interest to you, there is a resource for that. You can get started by seeing more about just how the laid-back tropical setting looks and see the properties and floor plans and rental income projections and access to the beach, something you might really be interested in, and more. And I just don't often see this, where you can come alongside a known real estate brand and leverage that entire platform for yourself. And I don't think that we've ever done a show with the opportunity for just that. I hope that you've enjoyed being, shall I say, mentally teleported to Margaritaville this week. You can get started at gremarketplace.com/Belize. That's gremarketplace.com/Belize. Until next week, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.